We just had the Hungarian Grand Prix, and this is how things worked out. Of course, Lewis Hamilton won. He got first place. Max Verstappen took P2 right behind him. Valtteri Bottas took third. Let's start with probably the biggest story from the race, which was Lewis Hamilton's just sheer domination. Credit to Mercedes, credit to Lewis. He was so far ahead at the end of the race that he was able to take an extra pit stop to get a fresh set of tires and go for it and earn fastest lap. So Lewis Hamilton got 26 points on the day in total. Lewis now leads the 2020 driver standings. He has 63 points. His teammate Valtteri Bottas has 58. And then Max Verstappen in third in the driver standings has 33 points. In this race, you could almost call Lewis Hamilton gluttonous, where he was literally leading by like 25 seconds. Takes another pit, new tires, fastest lap. And that pit stop was the only reason why Max Verstappen was even near him. Lewis dominated so much that he lapped Sebastian Vettel, who was in fifth place, with 12 laps to go. So first place was never in contention in the Hungarian Grand Prix. That's how F1 is sometimes. I'm okay with it. For me, though, the second biggest story was one we didn't see very much of, actually, if you're watching on TV. Right before the beginning of the race, I was watching on TV. I didn't see the Max Verstappen race. I had to look it up on YouTube afterward. And he had to have his push rod and track rod replaced minutes before the race. And Red Bull mechanics fixed it in 20 minutes. And, again, on TV, you didn't really get to see the drama, but it was a really slick, greasy track. Max locked up and went off into the side. And the repair job here is remarkable. Red Bull got the car ready to race. Usually it's a job that takes about an hour and a half. Did it in about 20 minutes and had Max ready to go with just over 20 seconds left to spare before the race and before he had to be done and get ready to go and go onto the track. That's just crazy for me. The fact that Max raced at all is so cool. And the biggest takeaway from Hungary is the reminder that, this is a team sport. It's really easy to give the driver all the credit, talk about how great Lewis Hamilton is, how great Max Verstappen is. Without the team around him, Lewis Hamilton doesn't win, obviously. I love Lewis. He's a great racer, got fast lap. He does a lot of great stuff. It certainly helps he has Mercedes, but also the fact that Max Verstappen even raced is because of his mechanics, because of the team around him. So I think that's something that's easily forgotten in Formula One, kind of like the offensive line. We focus on the quarterbacks in football. We focus on the stars, and the drivers are certainly the stars in Formula One. But they're half of the equation. The other half is a gigantic team of people, engineers, and decision makers behind the scenes who make it work in Formula One. Again, brilliant driving, though, by Max. It was really cool. He started in 7th place, and to finish second and split the Mercedes, again, right at the first turn, he started in 7th, took a wide angle on turn 1, went from 7th to 3rd during turn 1. I love it, man. Max getting P2 in Hungary, that's a victory. That might as well be P1 given the circumstance, given that his car was wrecked right before, had to have that last second fix. Everything coming together last minute, then staying relevant in the Drivers' Cup, the Drivers' Championship. He has 33 points. He's way behind Lewis, but hey, he could have nothing if he hadn't raced. And so, nothing, could have gotten no points if he hadn't raced. And so, I think overall, Hungary was a massive, massive victory for Max Verstappen. I think it's cool. How is history going to remember Max? A guy whose car wasn't quite as good as Lewis Hamilton's, but a guy who, he didn't keep up with Lewis. He was, way behind Lewis in this race, but he has really stayed competitive with Mercedes, and that's hard to do. His teammate Alex Albon is not competitive with Mercedes and really hasn't been much this year, other than a little bit during the first race. And so, really credit to Max. I think the way history is going to remember Max is a guy who never had the best car, at least not in the last couple of years, but really has, at least this year, challenged Mercedes and done a great job. Now, I want to talk about Valtteri Bottas. First of all, people say I mispronounce his name. And, on TV, they say Bottas. So I'm going to say Bottas. But I'm told that's wrong. People say it's Bottas, which is not a cuss word, I promise. I'm told this is wrong. I don't know. I'm a dumb American. I own that. I'm doing the best I can. And these are names that are tough for me. We have names like John, Michael. And, I don't want to sound insensitive. These are names I'm not native saying. And so most Americans, I want it to be clear, Roman Grosjean is a name some people would say Romain Grosjean, right? I don't say that. I don't say Charles Leclerc. I say Charles Leclerc because I know how to say his name. I'm doing the best I can. And so I encourage you, if you really don't like how I'm pronouncing names, please find me on Instagram. It's at Zach Schaumler. Send me a message. Tell me how, send me a video of you correctly pronouncing a Formula One name, and I will do my best to get it right next time. Please let me know. But I'm doing the very best I can. Now, there was a debate whether or not Valtteri Bottas did a false start right before the race. What happened was he started to go early. He stopped. He paused. That cost him a lot of time. Then he took off. And so, number one, if you look at the video, I kind of feel for Valtteri because if you look at his steering wheel, there are 3 little red lights who all went out like half a second before the lights went out to start the race. And it actually makes sense that that was his reason for what happened. And it makes total sense that something in your periphery would distract you, and you see 3 lights go off. You're like, you react because you're jumpy, ready to go for the race. You're all amped up to go. Maybe jumpy's the wrong word there. Now, some people were furious that he wasn't penalized. And I get it. Mercedes is the hated team. They're dominant. They're so great. I'm actually glad that he didn't get penalized for the false start. He really self-corrected, and that brief pause he took cost him a ton. He started the grid at P2. Around turn 1, he ended up in P6, excuse me. So you go from 2nd to 6th in one turn because of a mistake you make at the start. It feels like penalty enough, to be honest. He did overcome it, but I don't see a need for the FIA to give him a penalty there in that situation. He self-corrected, and he certainly paid enough as it was. If Valtteri Bottas gets a better start, he was chasing down Max Verstappen at the end of that race. He probably gets second or challenges Lewis Hamilton if he doesn't have the false start. I really think he got penalized enough, and you can be... I am not the biggest fan of Mercedes. I like their livery. I think Lewis Hamilton's a likable guy, even if he's somewhat of a villain because of how much he wins. But I'm not a Mercedes fan, but I'm also not a Mercedes hater. I try to be fair, and I think the fair thing here is to say, Valtteri Bottas self-corrected, he paid his due, and I saw no need for a penalty for the false start by Valtteri Bottas. And again, go look up the video on YouTube of him doing it. The 3 little lights on his steering wheel went off, and it just makes sense why he would react to that in his periphery. Now, another cool story of the race was Haas. I'm not sure if Haas would do... I really like what they did here. There was a really cool moment where, right around lap 3, people started to realize that they needed new tires. Everyone believed the track was wet. They were on intermediates. And people started to realize we have the wrong... The track is drier than we thought. We have the wrong tracks for these... wrong tires for these conditions. Charles Leclerc and Valtteri Bottas took a pit stop in lap 3. In lap 4, the floodgates opened and everybody started going to the pit lane, except for Haas, because right before the race, they made a change to tires for dry weather. And they beat everybody to the punch, right before the formation lap. Now, Haas actually got a 10-second penalty for for giving instructions and illegal driver aid. But again, I'm pretty sure if Haas could do everything over again, they'd still do it. They would do what they did and take the penalty because they got points. And without that advantage at the beginning, the better tires compared to everybody else, they just weren't going to move up the grid and get points like they did. Kevin Magnussen was up at 3rd place at one point. He really, really took advantage of that opportunity he got with the tire change. And even with the penalty, he finished 10th, so he got points. And that's the first time all year. Haas has 1 point all year. And, now they're 9th out of 10th. Woo! That's not great, right? Haas is 120 points behind the points leader Mercedes. It's 121 to literally 1. But that's honestly what, not only what F1 is in a nutshell, but that's what Haas is in a nutshell. They got 1 point. They're ecstatic. And what Haas does, they're probably, in my opinion, the best of the bottom teams, where what they do is they have a slow car. They don't build their own car. They source it out to Dallara. They got a really small budget. There are so many limiting factors on Haas, but once or twice a year, they make a really clever move and score some points. And I think that's cool. That's their MO, and I'm so happy for Gunter Steiner. I love him. And it's really cool to me. It's interesting that that's what they are. They're never going to be the best. They're never going to be best of the rest. They're really one of the bottom feeder teams in Formula One, but they're clever, and they always, once or twice a year, make a little move like that and make something happen. And shout out to Haas. It's funny how you can be 9th out of 10th and just be so happy after the end of the day. We got 1 point. Kind of, from the grand scheme of things, seems kind of pathetic compared to Mercedes. But that really is how Formula One is sometimes, and I'm happy for them. Now, right now, the standings for the Constructors' Championship is led by Mercedes. They have 121 points. Red Bull Racing is second with 55, way behind, over half the points of Mercedes. McLaren is in third with 41 points. Racing Point right behind them with 40 points. And Ferrari is fifth with 27 points. Now, the most interesting battle, in my opinion, is, the rest of the year is going to be the battle for third place. Who finishes third in the Constructors' Championship? It's going to be really fun. I think it's going to come down to McLaren or Racing Point. Maybe Ferrari. Ferrari is in fifth place. Their car just doesn't have the pace, though, of the other racers, not to mention the drama of Sebastian Vettel leaving, and you had Charles Leclerc. What was he doing, in the Styrian Grand Prix? I have no idea. And lap 1 takes out his teammate and himself. Racing Point was big at the Hungarian Grand Prix. They took 4th and 7th, got 18 points in total. Ferrari struggled at pace. They really weren't great. Charles Leclerc didn't end up in the points. Sebastian Vettel got 6th and got 8 points. And again, Charles Leclerc not finishing in the points is very telling. Ferrari is struggling. Now, McLaren was also basically a no-show this past weekend in Hungary. When a team like Haas gets points, other people have to sacrifice. And so McLaren was one of the teams that they got 2 points, 9th with Carlos Sainz. But really, in the scheme of things, it's almost a no-show weekend for McLaren. Now, what's interesting to me is Ferrari. They have fallen from a team that was once last year challenging Mercedes a couple times to a team that's in 5th, just trying to, get the best of the rest. Ferrari's trying so hard to stay relevant. And this year, getting 4th for Ferrari seems like it would be an accomplishment. Now, the FIA, what happened behind the scenes is this offseason, the FIA did an inquiry, a private inquiry, so we have no idea what happened, into Ferrari. And there's some kind of deal made behind the scenes to keep it quiet, whatever Ferrari did. But whatever happened, Ferrari's been way slower ever since the FIA did their investigation into what happened. And that's the kind of favoritism that I hate in F1, where I wish they'd just expose them. Tell us what Ferrari did. Let us know. Clearly something happened. They were probably doing something illegal, and their car is much slower as a result of that. Make them own it. Part of Ferrari's culture, the part that I don't like, is this weird kind of desire to hide the negative stuff. There's like this shame-based culture where we're going to hide our flaws, avoid shame, avoid embarrassment. It's one of the things about Ferrari that I'm not that attracted to, and I wish it would just come out. What did Ferrari do? Why the deals behind the scenes? Can you tell us what happened? Because clearly something went on, and they're much slower as a result. Now, Renault has protested Racing Point. I'm not sure where it's going to go. We'll break it down in a minute after the race reaction. But we'll see if it goes anywhere. Yeah, right now, a lot of people keep saying, what do you think? And I'm not sure that Racing Point's going to get penalized. I'm not sure they did anything wrong. We'll find out. It remains to be seen. But we'll just see what happens. I think Racing Point right now, though, they're a better team than Ferrari this year. They're clearly with the points, show that, but also their car has got great pace and they're doing well. And Lance Stroll, you can hate on him, right? He clearly has a car because his dad is a billionaire businessman who bought him a team and gave him a seat. But love Lance Stroll or not, I'm not the biggest fan. But you also do have to respect, he's a much better driver than I probably would be, right? He got points. I don't know that I could sit down in a car and get points. He's not some complete bum gentleman driver. He's not the best. He's clearly there because of his dad. And Formula One, even on their YouTube channel and all this stuff, the broadcasters, no one hides it. Everyone knows why Lance Stroll is there. But he's also not the worst driver ever. He's not terrible. It certainly does help he's driving a great car. But he's got more talent than a lot of other people, I think, would in that situation. I just try to put yourself in Lance Stroll's shoes. He's doing better than a normal person would do. Is he the best driver in the world? I don't know. Should he have a seat next year? Not Sebastian Vettel? I don't know. Probably not. But again, I don't know that all the hate on Lance Stroll is quite warranted. It's just really easy and really fun. He's a great target because his father is this billionaire Canadian businessman. Now, the last thing I want to say about this race it's just something I've noticed the last 3 races that I really like. The graphics team for Sky Sports and the people covering F1, man, they deserve a shout out. They are doing so well. No one talks about this stuff, but I encourage you, go watch other forms of racing. Go watch NASCAR, or I tried IndyCar. I couldn't get into IndyCar. It's just too busy. There's no star names in IndyCar, nothing like that. But go watch the graphics on IndyCar versus Formula One. Formula One blows them out of the water. F1, there's so much information given to viewers at home. There's that crazy cockpit view where you have the RPMs, you have the gear, you have the speed, you have this rear view camera. I'm telling you, man, the graphics team that works on Formula One is doing such a great job. And F1's bigger, there's more money, but I appreciate the graphics. The production value is so, so good when you watch a Formula One race. I love the Hungarian Grand Prix. It was fun. Hope you enjoyed it too. And let's shift gears to Racing Point.